I'm not quite sure how to describe this. I keep coming back to the idea that this was a quiet episode of Star Trek, but it's it's about murder. So I guess maybe not. But it's not entirely a completely on the ship episode. They do have a scene on a planet. They had the set there and all that, but the rest of it is all on the ship. But in the conscience of the king, we have a story of, yes, something of a murder mystery and revenge and all this sort of thing. And, of course, once again, Kirk romancing a woman for ulterior motives beyond just, Kirk being Kirk. So it opens up. Captain Kirk is visiting an old friend, and they're watching a play. And the old friend leans forward and tells him that guy on the stage is really this war criminal, or criminal nonetheless, who massacred a bunch of people on a colony that Kirk and this guy had lived on some time ago. Now, this is a story that gives you some insight and backstory for Kirk. At one point, he was living on this colony, and I don't ever really see it mentioned again, in later stories, but this is kind of interesting, isn't it? And I'm blanking on the amount of years that have gone by, so I'm guessing he was like maybe a teenager or something like that, on this planet where supplies ran out for whatever reason. And this governor named Kodos decided, well, I'm just going to have to start executing people so that we can ration the food, what we got left, and all that. So that's exactly what he does. And then, amazingly enough, the resupply ships showed up sooner than he thought they would. Couldn't you waited a little longer? So, and so now he's a criminal, and was believed to have died, but they never were able to identify his body as being his. Which, that's a neat trick. Was he able to, clone himself or something and make a body there because the DNA didn't check out? Because they said there was a body, so it's not like they say, he got disintegrated by a phaser or something, So, they didn't know about that at the time of the show, so, who knows how he did. See, there's a whole other story if you wanted, but I'm really tired of prequels at this point. But if someone who actually knew Star Trek could, you could, if they did like the Star Trek anthology series, which was one of the rumors that they thought about doing, which probably would have been the better way to go, but it wouldn't have worked because nobody currently in charge of Star Trek now has ever watched Star Trek, so they really don't know anything about it. So, but there would be this whole narrative of young Kirk, surviving on this terrible colony that just falls into ruin for, I don't know, I guess disease or famine. I forget what the reason was. And has to deal with Kodos. And then it ends with this mystery of, what happened to him? I guess he's dead, huh? Yeah, was that really him? I don't know. And then perhaps explaining the mystery of how Kodos pulled that off. But anyway, he feels bad about what he did. And he's moved on, decided to become an actor named Anton Caridian. And he performed Shakespeare all over the galaxy. So Kirk, his friend, tells him this, and he suspects that's who this guy is, and Kirk is skeptical. And he's at a dinner party for the guy, and then in walks Anton Caridian's daughter, and she's smoking hot, so Kirk's got other things to think about. And then, his friend, who had half his face apparently blown off in this horrible ordeal on the planet, I believe it was Tarsus 4, so he's pretty much like Two-Face, which is interesting because William Shatner was cast as Two-Face in the Batman 66 animated cartoon, one of the final projects of Adam West. Yeah, it would have been interesting at the time if William Shatner had been one of the guest villains on the old show. Anyway, so this guy turns up dead. So he's a murder victim, and then Kirk. So now he looks into this, and turns out everybody who actually witnessed or saw Kodos face to face have been dropping like flies. Now, this is odd because then Kirk says, hey, computer, show me a picture of Kodos, and then compare it to Anton Caridian, and you can see Kodos is younger, but, a similar look and all that. But, yeah, there's the guy's picture, so it's rather pointless to kill people who actually met him in person. But then again, maybe he changed his look before he left, what have you. I don't know. So he's, oh my God, he's killing off people who could identify him. And so obviously the guy is Kodos. It's like, hi, if you find out he's not, well, show's over. Move on. And Spock is already convinced, and he's, and Kirk's irritated that he's sticking his nose in his business, but then, Bones to him, that's his job, stupid. And meanwhile, Kirk is now romancing the daughter because he's trying to get information, but falling in love was never part of the plan. And so there's, the flirt. And of course, it is Kodos, and he decides to do a voice print of his of the Kodos, and gets him to read Kodos' execution order that he did. And the guy is able to he doesn't even need to read it. He knows because it's him. And so, and then it's not an exact match, but, and Spock said, come on, it's him, and he's been murdering people all over the place. Well, Caridian doesn't want to kill anybody anymore. He's really upset about what he did in his younger days, He says, look, I'm sorry. Let's just move on. But it turns out, yeah, the girl's hot, but boy, is there a big catch. Yeah, it turns out she's psycho nuts. And she's been murdering all these people to protect her father. And boy, dear old dad just didn't know anything about it, no. And just by chance, one of Kirk's crewmen, who was a guy, Riley, I think this is the only other part this guy does, because you see him again, or before, I forget. But anyway, it turns out, well, hey, he was on that planet too. And Kirk just suddenly, oh yeah, that guy. So she almost kills him. And then he wants to kill Kodos while he's doing the play. And Kirk stops him. And then Lenore, Lenore Caridian, steals the phaser and threatens to just fry everybody. And, and Kirk's like, you don't want to do that. And she's about to shoot Kirk, and then oddly enough, Kodos leaps in front of Kirk and takes the phaser blast and drops dead on the floor. And then what's her face really loses her marbles then, daddy's girl. And Kirk, oddly enough, says, wow, I owe my life to Kodos. So yeah, she claps into ruin. And then later, Bones tells Kirk, well, she's insane, so we're going to put her in an institution. It turns out she doesn't even remember what happened. A likely story. But Kirk was still very fond of the girl, and he doesn't want to talk about it anymore. So, it's kind of this sad ending for Kirk here. A big mess. I mean, his friend's murdered, and then this girl he had the odds for turns out to be a murderer. And then old Kodos, a villain from his past, is like, hey, what are you going to do? A simple episode in a lot of ways, but all around good. You get what I think was really the power of the original Star Trek was the relationships between the main characters, and you get a lot of evidence of that between Spock and Bones here talking about this, and then, of course, Kirk between the three of them, and all that's good stuff. It's a good episode. It's set up like a murder mystery, but is it really? I mean, it's the daughter. Well, okay, but there's really not much of a surprise there, but still, pretty good. And on a sad note of somewhat, this was the final appearance of Grace Lee Whitney as Yeoman Rand. She briefly appears in a cameo, basically. She walks on the bridge and sees Lenore there, standing there looking all sexy and everything. And so Yeoman's like, meow, meow, you know. But which is odd because they'd already decided to abandon the storyline. Like, she was this potential regular girlfriend for Kirk. Like, there would always be this sort of romantic, goings on between the two of them, whether or not, well, will they or won't they? Everything, probably never would. But that would always be that she was the main girl in Kirk's life. And they decided to abandon that because they just wanted to keep Kirk single and happening, And I mean, really, was Kirk ever going to settle down? Nah, I don't think he was ever going to be husband material. But anyway, so yet her last scene is basically, meow meow scene. and in that was that. Plus, I think she went into that saying they were describing they just didn't think they had room for her in the cast. They didn't want two blondes on the show because Majel Barrett was Nurse Chapel at this point, and she was the wife of the producer, so do the math, And but they could have kept her on, here and there. It's just it's kind of a lazy notion of like, well, it's just like she's a placeholder or something. You got to write stuff. You got to develop the character, But so you won't see her again until another brief cameo for Star Trek: The Motion Picture. So that's the way things go, So anyway, Star Trek: Conscience of the King, another good one from the original Star Trek. Thank you for watching and listening. Say, why not like and subscribe, and check out that link description below. That'll take you to my mini stores that have plenty of goodies for you. And, of course, you can check out my podcast at RadioMisfits.com, The Mr. Nailsin Show. And you can also watch my videos at BitChute.com. Subscribe to the Mr. Nailsin channel on BitChute.com.